Chase-Jin shook his head helplessly, but no matter what, you have to trust me one more time. To completely clear all your involvement, you yourself need to do one thing. What is it? You want to use me again? I'm sorry that I indeed took advantage of you because of your feelings towards me, an old friend, when we first met. But after that, I never thought of using you again. If you can trust me once more, you should hurry and tell Greg Wang that you remembered something about Jasmine Gan from our college days. In college, there was a student named Wu Gang who pursued her for 3 years. His pursuit was crazy, and he even harassed her until graduation. You should have heard me talk about this. Also, Jasmine Gan's real boyfriend in college was Leo Liu, our class monitor. Xander Su scoffed disdainfully, "You're still not using me? You want me to disrupt the police's investigation direction, pinning the blame on your classmate. Chase-Jin, you're really venomous, utterly selfish." Chase-Jin shook his head. "No, this is not for me, but for you. These 2 clues, although they will temporarily affect the police's investigation direction, they will figure it out before long. The reason I asked you to tell Greg Wang this is not to buy time for myself, but to gain more trust from Greg Wang. Because after mentioning these 2 clues, most importantly, you need to find a way to reveal to Greg Wang that after graduating and working in Jean County, you pursued Jasmine Gan and succeeded, but not long after, you felt she wasn't much help to your career, and you proposed a breakup." "Bullshit, when did I ever pursue Jasmine Gan?" "You want to frame me?" Xander Su, Chase-Jin looked at him seriously. "With our decades of friendship, I would never harm you. If you're unwilling to get involved in this case any further, I can understand. I will think of other ways. Of course, if you're willing to cooperate, I won't need to think of other ways for you." After saying that, Chase-Jin pulled out a tissue from the table, wiped his greasy lips, stood up with his short and stout figure, and without saying anything, slowly left. Leaving Xander Su sitting alone, he swallowed a mouthful of food, at a loss. What exactly does Chase-Jin want to do? Does he want to frame me? That's impossible, he can't fabricate any evidence to frame me. Or does he want to continue using me, revealing a few disruptive clues to Greg Wang, affecting the progress of the investigation, to buy more time for his crimes? But how much time can that buy him? Greg Wang has already sent people to check the physical examination reports for height. Chase-Jin will soon enter the police's radar. If I do as he says, will I sink deeper and deeper, unable to extricate myself? Or does Chase-Jin actually hope I'll be completely trapped, becoming his accomplice? Decades of friendship, would he really have the heart to harm me for a dead woman? Or has he already thought that, after the incident with Hejian, I didn't notice Jasmine Gan's abnormalities in time, didn't bring enough comfort to Jasmine Gan, thus considering me an indirect murderer of Jasmine Gan, and therefore, the next target, could it be me? Xander Su shivered all over, trembling uncontrollably. And about that Wu Gang, Xander Su indeed had heard Chase-Jin mention him before. However, he had never heard that Jasmine Gan's boyfriend in college was Leo Liu, their class monitor. Xander Su indeed knew very little about Jasmine Gan's college life, and he didn't deceive Greg Wang about this during their conversation. Could be that Leo Liu was never Jasmine Gan's boyfriend, and Chase-Jin telling me to inform Greg Wang was just to make Greg Wang find out I'm lying, thus suspecting me? In the end, would Chase-Jin use some method to kill me, then fake it as if I committed suicide out of guilt, turning everything into a complete unsolved case? By now, his feelings of friendship with Chase-Jin from the past years had completely vanished, only thinking about how to completely clear all his involvement to the fullest extent. Could there really be only one way, for me to kill Chase-Jin with my own hands, faking his suicide out of fear of crime? Or should I trust him one more time, and really tell Greg Wang those disruptive clues? Xander Su fell into complete bewildered contemplation. Before Greg Wang came to the He family, he didn't arrange to notify Hejian's mother, because he was worried that if notified in advance, Hejian's mother, if she knew the inside story of this crime, might prepare a set of excuses in advance, thus making them return without success. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Greg Wang and Jacqueline, dressed in plain clothes, brought a few bags of fruit to the He family, knocked on the door, and soon the mother-in-law came out. Seeing 2 men she hadn't seen before, she asked warily, "Who are you looking for?" Greg Wang smiled kindly. Is this the He family? Who are you? Jacqueline introduced. This is County Public Security Bureau Chief Greg Wang. We're here to see you. The mother-in-law frowned nervously. It's been so long since the incident. What do you still want? Greg Wang found her reaction a bit strange, so he said, It's nothing, we were just passing by and wanted to stop by and chat with you. Having been through so much, the mother-in-law knew well that even the local police officers were not to be offended, let alone the deputy director of the Public Security Bureau in front of her. Hesitating for a moment, she had no choice but to open the door and let them in, pouring tea for the two. From the moment Greg Wang walked into the yard, he carefully observed the He family. After 2 tragedies, the He family's house seemed somewhat desolate, with clutter and some broken garbage piled up in the yard uncleaned, and the first floor's window glass was also broken, not yet replaced by the owner. After entering the house, although the furniture was still relatively neat, there was an overall sense of desolation. He sighed in his heart. River had really caused a series of calamities that completely destroyed this family. After looking around, he asked, Where's your grandson? The mother-in-law pursed her lips, unwilling to respond, but had to answer, at kindergarten. Greg Wang nodded, then asked, How has your family been recently? The mother-in-law sniffed and said, How else could it be, just like this? What exactly are you here for? As she spoke, she couldn't help but start sobbing quietly. Greg Wang and Jacqueline exchanged glances, and he also felt a pang of sorrow, but comforting people was not his strong suit, and he didn't have so much time and energy to waste on comforting people, so he went straight to the point. Don't cry, after all, it's been so long since the incident. We're here today, not for anything else, but as you might know, River's family was killed. Frankly speaking, this case is related to Jasmine Gone. The mother-in-law interrupted, crying out loud, We really didn't know Jasmine Gone would do such a thing. Big leader, I beg you, don't make things difficult for our family anymore. We live like turtles every day, can't you just let us go? I beg you, I beg you. Saying this, she actually knelt down in front of Greg Wang, desperately kowtowing. Greg Wang and Jacqueline hurriedly helped her up, and after hearing her words, Greg Wang analyzed and felt there was something strange, and quickly asked, I've never been to your house before, what do you mean by not making things difficult for you? The mother-in-law continued to cry, the house was smashed, people were beaten. Leader, I beg you, give us a way to live. Saying this, she attempted to kowtow again. Greg Wang hurriedly helped her back into the chair, staring and asking, Wasn't the Jasmine Gone case closed long ago? The criminal was only her, your family was unaware, we've already investigated. Who came to smash your house, beat people? The mother-in-law cried and said, River's family, Li Gang's family, they come every 2 or 3 days, even wanting to beat my 4-year-old grandson. She couldn't continue crying. Greg Wang was shocked and angry, urgently saying, After the Jasmine Gone case, Rivers and Li Gang's families have been troubling your family multiple times? The mother-in-law nodded while crying. Greg Wang turned to Jacqueline, Did you know about this? Jacqueline shook his head, didn't know, never heard the people below mention it. Greg Wang then comforted the mother-in-law, and finally, when she calmed down, he said, I'm really sorry, Rivers and Li Gang's families troubling you. Our County Public Security Bureau has always been unaware. If we had known earlier, I would have definitely sought justice for your family. When Rivers and Li Gang's families came to trouble you, why didn't you call the police? The mother-in-law sobbed and said, We did, the police station didn't care, the police just watched as they beat my grandson. Greg Wang slammed the table angrily, There's such a thing. The police station is managed by Vincent Fan, right? Jacqueline said, Yes, the city area is all under Vincent Fan, probably because the police station is on good terms with Rivers and Li Gang's families, it's difficult to handle this matter. Humph. Greg Wang's face was full of anger. What do you mean difficult to handle? It's clearly Vincent Fan deliberately doing this. The troublemakers cause trouble once, catch them once, those damn families still dare to trouble you? Jacqueline whispered, Those family members, they are all related people within the system. Bullshit, what does it matter if they are within the system? If Vincent Fan can't handle it, Why didn't he report it to the county bureau? I'll catch them all. Jacqueline remained silent on the side, knowing well that his boss had a big temper, but deep down, he was a rare good officer. Although he and the team of criminal police were old slickers, they genuinely admired Greg Wang's character. It's just that Greg Wang's personality easily offends people, so a few years ago he was transferred from another county to manage Jean County's criminal investigation. Over the years, Greg Wang has achieved significant results in case handling, but has been unable to get promoted, also because he has no backers above. His criminal investigation skills are proficient, and since joining the police, he has been commended by the Ministry of Public Security twice, including the leaders in the province recognizing his capabilities. However, the leaders believe he is not good at personnel management, so he has always been assigned to handle the specific work of criminal investigation. If not for his outstanding capabilities, being upright, having no weaknesses, and the support of a group of old classmates who are also police officers, he might have been taken down long ago. Despite his anger, Greg Wang had no means to deal with Vincent Fan. After taking a few deep breaths to calm himself, a realization suddenly dawned on him. The murder of Li Gang's family was likely a revenge act for the humiliation inflicted upon the He family by Li Gang's relatives. Li Gang had no direct connection to the case involving He Jian's death. He was involved only because he was responsible for the town's security, and thus, he presided over the negotiations following the incident, which led to his death alongside Jasmine Gan in the explosion. A little inquiry would have revealed to the murderer that Li Gang had nothing to do with Jasmine Gan's death. Yet, the murderer brutally killed Li Gang's family. Given the murderer's careful and meticulous nature, he must have conducted thorough investigations before the act and knew the connections. The only explanation was that the murderer witnessed Li Gang's family causing trouble for the He family. Greg Wang had an epiphany, solving a puzzle in his mind, and he sighed internally. He could imagine the malicious methods Li Gang's relatives might have used when they harassed the He family. And all of this was witnessed by the murderer. One could argue that Su Yao and Li Qiming were wronged, as they wouldn't have harassed the He family if Jasmine Gan hadn't killed Li Gang. However, one could also argue they deserved their fate. They smashed properties, beat people, and did not spare even a 4-year-old child. According to He Jian's mother, they came to harass them every few days, showing that their retaliatory harassment was excessively cruel. Would the murderer, who brutally killed Lily Wang and Jiang Xiaobing for Jasmine Gan, spare Su Yao and Li Qiming? Greg Wang had more clues and thoughts in his mind. It seemed his visit to the He family today was not in vain. Continuing the inquiry would likely yield more clues. Greg Wang offered some consolation. "I'm very sorry for the trouble caused by their visit to your home. The county was unaware, but I assure you, this will not happen again." The grandmother was greatly appreciative, and her emotions gradually stabilized. Greg Wang continued, "Now, I need to understand some other matters. Please answer truthfully, okay? How many times have the Jiang and Li families caused trouble here?" The grandmother rolled up her sleeves, revealing her bruised arms, and said, "I don't know how many times. Look at me, an old woman beaten like this. My grandson was also beaten, and look at the walls outside, they are all smashed." Greg Wang lifted her arms, believing there were similar injuries elsewhere on her body, and pressed his lips together in annoyance. "Try to remember, how many times have these two families caused trouble?" "Probably more than 10 times. "Since when did they start?" "A few days after Jasmine Gan's incident, they came together." "How often did they come?" "At first, they came every few days, then it became once every 1 or 2 weeks. Whenever they passed by, they would cause trouble." Greg Wang pondered. With so many incidents, it would be difficult to determine when exactly the murderer learned about the Jiang and Li families harassing Jasmine Gan's child. He shifted the question. Every time the Jiang and Li families came to cause trouble, who exactly came? "Their relatives." Greg Wang patiently asked, "I know they were their relatives, but can you recall who exactly from River and Li Gang's families came?" The grandmother said, "River's wife and son, along with River and his wife's siblings, and Li Gang's wife, son, and their siblings' families." "What about Xander Su, did his relatives come?" The grandmother lamented, Director Sue was a good person. Everyone said it was wrong for Jasmine Gone to have killed Director Sue. We owe the Sue family. Greg Wang, not interested in her rambling lament, interrupted to get to the point. Did Xander Sue's relatives ever cause trouble for your family? Never. I heard that Director Sue's family also sympathizes with us, blaming it on bad luck. Oh, I see, said Greg Wang. Who among the Jiang and Li families hit you and your grandson? They all did. Greg Wang frowned, finding it troublesome to extract information from the elderly woman who couldn't focus on the key points of the inquiry. However, he couldn't blame her and continued patiently, who hit the most and the hardest? River and Li Gang's wives and sons, and River's wife's brothers. Greg Wang nodded thoughtfully, harboring more ideas. He asked the grandmother, do you resent Jasmine Gone for what she did? The grandmother looked into Greg Wang's eyes, and after a moment, shook her head tiredly. I don't hate her, nor do I blame her. She married into our family and brought trouble upon herself. She was a good daughter-in-law. How did she and He Jian come together? Was it through a matchmaker, or did they meet some other way? The grandmother recalled, I think they met online. Later, Jian pursued her, and they eventually got married. Among your family and Jasmine Gone's relatives, is there anyone else who works in the chemical industry like she did? The grandmother thought for a moment and said, no, only she studied chemical engineering. Working in the chemical industry is bad for health, so we asked her not to work after getting married. She started crying again. If she hadn't been in this line of work, none of this would have happened. Seeing her emotions rising again, Greg Wang quickly offered some words of comfort and then asked, after Jasmine Gone's incident, who came to visit your family? The grandmother snorted, relatives and friends were avoiding us, who else would come to see us? When the Jiang and Li families came to our door, not a single relative came to help. Greg Wang thought for a moment and asked, did any of Jasmine Gone's old classmates come to visit you? The grandmother, not understanding his intent, thought for a while and answered, one did come. Who was that person? It seems, he works in the city. He said he was Jasmine Gone's old class monitor, representing the other classmates. The class monitor, what's his name? Greg Wang was suddenly startled. The name? I've forgotten. Greg Wang blurted out, is it Liu Lu? Yes, it seems to be Liu Lu. Leader, how do you know? What's wrong with him? Oh, nothing. When Jasmine Gone's incident happened, we also contacted her classmates to understand the situation. Greg Wang evaded. By the way, when did he come? About, more than 3 weeks ago. What did he say? He didn't say much, just inquired about the family situation, said his classmates would come to visit in the future, and asked where Jasmine Gone's grave was. Greg Wang's mind lit up. Did anyone else come to visit you? The grandmother thought for a moment and said, a few relatives came to say a few words and then left. Also, a kind prosecutor named Xander Sue came several times, saying we could ask him for help if we needed anything. Xander Sue. Greg Wang's brow furrowed. With Jasmine Gone causing such a big incident, even relatives and friends avoided the Yi family, yet this person with a position within the system visited several times. Greg Wang gathered some more information and assured the grandmother that he would urge the police station to protect their family from further harassment. Then, with a mind full of doubts, he left the Yi family. Jacqueline drove the car, and Greg Wang sat in the passenger seat, holding a pen and paper, carefully analyzing all the information recorded today. Among the relatives of the He and Gone families, only Jasmine Gone worked in the chemical industry. Judging by the murderer's extremely professional crime techniques, the murderer must have been Jasmine Gone's classmate or colleague. Information obtained from Jasmine Gone's former workplace indicated that only a colleague named Yi had pursued her, but he had been ruled out as a suspect, and she had not maintained contact with other colleagues in recent years. If relatives and colleagues are ruled out, the murderer's most likely identity is one of Jasmine Gone's classmates. That is to say, the fat man must be one of Jasmine Gone's classmates. As for his non-chemical industry accomplice, his background remains undetermined. What kind of relationship existed between the fat man and Jasmine Gone that would drive him to commit a capital offense in revenge for a married woman after her death? Greg Wan thought for a moment and nodded to himself. Only one kind of emotion could be so intense: love. Only a deep, bone-deep love, to the point of madness, could lead to such insane actions. The answer was almost within reach. The murderer was one of Jasmine Gone's suitors or boyfriends from her student days. Based on the information previously obtained, Wu Gang was a fanatical suitor, but he had moved away with his family, and his whereabouts were still unknown, though they would eventually be discovered. As for boyfriends, Jasmine Gone's former teacher couldn't remember, and their old class monitor, Leo Liu, said there wasn't one. Whether there was a boyfriend or a short-term relationship that ended in a breakup is still uncertain. Regarding the murderer's first target, River's wife and son, it was natural for the murderer, given his motive. River caused He Jian's death, indirectly leading to Jasmine Gone's demise. As for the second target, Li Gang's wife and son, Greg Wang initially thought the murderer might not fully understand the circumstances of Jasmine Gone's death. However, after today's conversation, he realized he was mistaken. Given the murderer's cautious nature, he must have conducted his investigation and knew that Li Gang was unrelated to Jasmine Gone's death. The reason was simply that Li Gang's wife and son harassed the He family, which the murderer knew about. Any murderer, deeply in love with Jasmine Gone and seeing her son being bullied, would undoubtedly resort to murder.